Okay. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, my voice is loud enough and you can hear me. It's early in the morning here in Toronto, Canada. I wanted to speak about the angles that life could have moved through. The angles life could have happened through. I want the listener, Mr.Within wants the listener to wonder about the nature of how you have experienced existence so far, and how before any decision there was potential for multiple decisions. And I feel that there's a mystery, there's a fascination in that feeling that there is multiple options before movement in the inner realms, and then the person decides on something or does something, and the option becomes limited in the outer realm. When I look at my life, it feels to me that every day is a series of events, and the whole day, the overall of those micro events, the whole day is like a macro event. And if life is seen to be a series of decisions, a series of actions, what do we do with the multiplicity of it? I kind of, wonder, or there has been times where I've wondered that if I die, will I be in a state of mind where I'm looking at the potential of things, or will I be in a state of mind where it's a decision has been made and a certain shape has gone through? Because right now, as I'm speaking to you, in front of my eyes, I exist as a biological, objective individual. But behind my eyes, I am not an object, and I have noticed that I am not individual, and the consciousness has its limits. There was a time that I felt knowing and knowledge at its highest form was a static phenomena. I felt a lot of things in life were set in stone, and while it was set in stone, while I had this mentality that there are fixed ways that existence is existing and it doesn't deviate from that, I solidified, and I can tell you, I missed out on the future. We are a story on some level, and every day we wake up, our existence, our independence, our individualism, how we are a person depends on how well we remember this event. On some level, if the human being never slept, there would be no gap between perception, And I always thought, what would immortality mean? Because we human beings consider ourselves to be mortal, and then we consider death to be non existence. But when we sleep, we subjectively are non existent, which means how much are we aware that we're an object or not? I remember I had a dream. In the dream, I could move. I was running at a fast speed. I wanted to go left, I could go left. I wanted to go right, I could go right. I could even run, what do you call it? Run underneath water. in the dream. I woke up noticing that my body was inactive, but my mind was active. My body, the outer life, the physical life, was in a sort of stasis, and the inner life was active. And it made me consider that how truly are we awake as creatures? Because for me, it feels the mind is simultaneously living a life over the body, and the mind is appearing as a sort of access point of perception where we see matter and the space. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, just like how you read a sentence and you're aware of the spaces in between, I'm aware of the silence. For me, silence can become a person's voice too. It's actually your first voice, and once you get comfortable with your silence, then you become very comfortable with words. And anytime you just notice you're not a thought, a subject, you're not an idea, you are the mover of vision in your experience. Now, I wonder about my life. I could have totally gone a different direction. At some point in my life, I wanted to go become a financial advisor. And at another point in my life, I wanted to go and become an engineer. And various avenues opened up. But eventually, I stopped searching ideologically or just based on an assumption that from this moment, I know what is best for all the moments to come. You know, when I kind of came to the unknown a little bit, I kind of tuned down my strictness on how I felt I know things. I began to see things change in a different way. And it's like a subtlety where you look at a tree and bilingual people who are aware of multiple languages, even if you just know more than one word in one language, in multiple languages, you know one word. For example, when I look at a tree, the word tree pops into my head when I look at an actual tree. Now, simultaneously, there has been incidents, and for example, when I'm in Iran, it happens more often. When I look at a tree, the Farsi phrase for tree, which is deracht, comes to my mind. So I see tree, and I also see the word deracht, right? So my mind, I've noticed it, it can evoke multiple languages to the moment. This is why language is flexible, because I could call that tree different names, but it is still the same tree. So existence seems to be appearing with a sort of singular restriction of the laws of nature, but behind our eyes there is the flexibility, the stretching of the laws of nature. And even if we figured out everything, let's say to some degree scientifically, we were like, all right, we figured out all the laws. At the end of it, you see, just like society, the laws are not there to be on their own. The laws are there when a creature is choosing to live through that circumstance. That means we made laws in society when society became conscious of itself and could acknowledge those laws, you know. Your life is a once in a lifetime film that you are the main actor of. And when it comes to your inner realms, you're no longer the actor, you become the director. Just like a director on a film set, the director is alert and aware of everything that is going on, and also seeing how much it matches the accuracy of the inner realms. So Mr. Within would say, who you are behind your eyes surpasses the rationality or irrationality that is sensory bound. You see, it's not just senses. Right now, when I hear these birds chirp on the tree, I hear this bird song. That bird song is not just bird song, even though on some level it's just the sound, but it's a sound that a creature is making, you know? And this regression into intelligence's origin, not only it can be endless, but because it's endless, there's no other valuation you can give it. So imagine man-made measurement, and he came to measure the universe only to realize that the universe was bigger than his measurements. That means the mysteries of our world are surpassing the texture of how culture has accepted phenomenology, because regardless of, even you let's say become the most expert scientist, you become the most expert philosopher, let's say you become the most expert theologian, after some point it is just the game of the known and the unknown. That means I consider wisdom to be an awareness to the emptiness of the room before someone's in it. When you're aware of what's there before you were, there is a certain strange contentment, you know. And that's the thing. When you look at human beings, because even though the world has become more technologically advanced and more secular, but religions have the number of religious people has raised, and many people in secular society, it's as if they want to escape their normal lives. For me, it's hilarious. I mean, let's just look at what kind of world we're living in here, guys. What kind of civilization we have set into motion. We have created a civilization that worships the individual. Therefore, it is causing everybody to pay attention to their individualism first. Because people pay attention to their individualism first and they want to attend to that, they don't have time to pay attention to their collectivity. So, right off the bat, where how the civilization is designed, it makes the person unaware that there is something more than themselves. Because they feel if they can't keep themselves alive, how could they even be able to see life? But the issue is, in the whole time that you're living for yourself, it's also an opportunity cost of the same time that you should be living for your civilization and for your world. Now, the win-win strategy is to make this simultaneous. And honestly, I got this as a clue, this idea from two different stories. One was from two different viewpoints. One was from Alan Watts, where Alan Watts said, in this life, people think about what to do and how much money, for example, it gives. And of course, reality is like a battlefield. You go through it. But I'm telling you, Alan Watts suggested, wonder what you would do if money was not an option. And what does that mean? That means imagine everybody was a billionaire. What then? Imagine everybody had the best house, best health, everything was perfect. What then? I feel that the ethos, this grand story that is going to assist us all in the future generations, should be a story, should be a vision of humanity that is no longer trying to make the small big and the big small. It has completed its games of objectivity and subjectivity, and so where else would the ethos be led? A civilization without blind spots. That is truly an advanced civilization. A civilization that the amount of blind spots it becomes aware of is way more than the number of new movements being ignited, you know. We are alive once, and every day is like a mini version of what is going to happen at the end of our lifetime. Every day we wake up and we, in some sense, go back into the void. So Alan Watts said money wasn't an option. The second story is a story, and it's a business story. There's this young entrepreneur. He wants the Holy Grail. He wants to step out of the poverty of his life. One morning he sees and he finds this billionaire running by a seashore. The kid notices the billionaire. He's attentive enough to notice his opportunity, and he goes up to the man and says, please, as if he wants to get out of the world he's in. He says, please, tell me how I can be wealthy, abundant. And the man looks at his sincerity, the sincerity of this kid, the billionaire. He's like, all right, tomorrow early in the morning, be here. And so the kid goes, and he even goes and rents a suit. He's like, I'm meeting a billionaire. This is an important meeting. And he's all suited up with a notebook and whatever. And the guy is there early in the morning. The billionaire arrives there too. But the billionaire is in a swimming suit. But this guy, this kid, he's come with a suit on. And the kid's like, what is this? You know, and the billionaire was an old man, so the kid's kind of like, okay, let's hope he's not crazy. And so the kid's there, and suddenly the guy says, take off your jacket and put your notebook and everything down. And the guy puts it, and he tells the kid, if you want me to tell you the secret to becoming abundant, step into the water. And the kid is looking at this guy, and suddenly the kid laughs. He's like, this guy's kidding. This is some probably billionaire humor or something, you know, but it is not. And the man is waiting. The billionaire is waiting, and he's saying, step into the water. And the kid's like, is this guy serious? And he sees the guy serious, and the kid kind of has no choice because he wants to know. And so he goes with it. And he goes in the water, and the guy's walking behind him in the water, the billionaire, and the billionaire slowly has his hand on the guy's back and slowly pushing him further into the water. The guy goes up to his like thigh, up to his shoulders, like before his shoulder. I mean, way before his shoulders, you know. The water gets up to his chest, and right when the water is there, the guy's suit clothing's become wet and all this, and suddenly the billionaire puts the guy's head under the water. Puts this kid's head under the water. And the kid's head is under the water. He's there, kind of like he can't breathe for a couple seconds. Suddenly the guy brings the kid's head out, and he says, okay, step outside of the water. They go, step outside on the shore, and the kid is like, this guy's crazy. You know, but the kid's like, what? You know, he gets angry, and he's like, what is this, man? I came here for you to tell me the secrets of this thing. You bring me to the in the middle of the ocean, like you tell me to go in the water, and you put my hand in the water, and you tell me stuff. Like none of this makes sense to the kid. The billionaire says, "I got a question. I gotta ask you. When you were underneath that water, what did you want the most?" The kid looks at the eyes of the billionaire and sees how he's asking the question, and he says, "Air. I wanted to breathe." And the billionaire says, "There. When you want to reach something as much as you want to breathe, if you were underwater, you would succeed. When its importance from the inner realm surpasses whatever comment in the outer realms people get, because on some level you're here for your life, and through your life you live for all life." You know, I when I was young, I would look at life, and it's kind of like right now when I look at life, there is a feeling that has remained. And it is the same feeling I have felt when I have looked at an ocean and I didn't know what was in the depths. When I looked at somewhere dark where I didn't know what was there. It was the unknown, and the unknown is the birthplace of novelty. And those who don't fear it, they will tap into rhythms, and these rhythms have an intuitive orchestration in the sense that you're not just again, it's as if it's, here's the thing. Right now we're all thinking we're people, okay? We're just thinking we're one thing. But we are going to realize we're actually, just like we have two eyes that see the same, we are in two subtler ways of existence. We're existing as awareness and as self, basically. Now, when you look at the self, I feel it disappears. When you try to have thoughts, the thought isn't there. When you try to speak, you can't speak. But if you close your eyes and sit in the silence and your inner realms start moving and then you begin to speak, then the rhythm is already there, whether you vocalize or not. I look at my life and I can see it. It could have happened in so many ways. And it's just mind boggling. It, it's mind boggling how many ways that life could have ended and changed. I had a kind of, I mean, it was kind of a strange, literally near death experience, but it wasn't like a near death. Like, here, it was literally like a friend of me saved me from a bus in the UK. A friend of mine. And there was just that subtle moment, that feeling that something you could have not existed. It's kind of strange. It's like you ask yourself, why am I existing? You realize it's to experience life. You ask yourself, why am I experiencing things? Because you exist. So I feel it's about time we as a species begin just acknowledging our inner realms. And the issue was in my own schooling and being raised in this world, I could tell you, like, they don't teach you how to be a mind on this planet. They just teach you how bodies have moved. They don't teach you how to be alive. They teach you how to exist. Everybody, any ideological system, you hear anything, any phenomenon, any idea, anything in language. It is a suggestion, a momentary suggestion, and unless you as a human being can if like unless you become comfortable with the spontaneous change that may occur in your inner realms, the inner realms are like literally a roller coaster. What does that mean? That means you could close your eyes and envision, like, okay, let's say I'm looking at that tree right now. I can close my eyes and I could still see that tree. Even though my eyes are closed, I could still feel I'm seeing what's outside there, even though it's a visual image, like a memory. Like the tree exists as a subject when I close my eyes. But when I close my eyes, I could see myself kind of here, but I could instantly see myself walking on Saturn's ring. Like that image as I'm talking to you right now in my inner realms, like I could just visualize myself, just playfully, visualize myself kind of walking on Saturn's ring, for example, or kind of like you know, I don't know, holding Thor's hammer, you know. These are the inner realms. Suddenly, it's like I was looking at that tree, I was here, but suddenly I went somewhere else. So, what it means is that when we open our eyes, objective dimension active, subjective dimension active. When we close our eyes, because the visuals go away, the subjective dimension is active. So we identify as a subject because of this. And because we identify as a subject, if you stop moving physically, that subject will stop animating from you. Then you become this pure antenna, and whatever you receive is to some degree your discretion. You know, it's like someone asking you, where is your body? Like where is your, biological existence? Like you can pinpoint that very instantly. Now, if somebody asks you, where is your thought? Where is the idea on your body? Where is the thinker? It is that question that destroys that idea's validity. What we think is a thought is an attributeless attention like a camera, and reality moves in front of it. So, guys, in the chat section, Aziz says, Mr. Within, how can I befriend my mind? How can I be a friend of my mind? Well, here's the thing. Imagine in real life, when you want to become friends with someone, you don't just decide to be friends with them. You observe and you kind of see what kind of human being you are and what kind of human being they are, and then based on your discretion and harmony and how both friends in the moment can co-create, there comes the kind of acquaintance. But the whole thing is you gotta go through events and experiences where those events build up trust in your experience. The issue is not that you're not a friend of your mind. The issue is that you are not seeing the mind. It's as if you still need to have a conversation with the mirror, Aziz, to realize the self-reflective nature of how you are projecting meaning. So what I mean by that is, uh, have different I just have this idea that nobody has your eyes, as a response to your question. Just have this view: nobody has your eyes, nobody has your DNA. And what that means if you see your mind, if you're considering that you have a mind, it is limited to how your eyes have been opened to the world. So you have to study not only how your eyes have opened to the world, but in some sense, what all that has meant in regards to how much you can abide with the moment. That means for me, if somebody tells me, is meditation, is meditation the ultimate? I'll be like, no. Meditation is just like a phase. After meditation, it's like you become an antenna and you move rhythmically with the moment. And that's when you become an your intuition becomes second nature. So that's what I would say, Aziz. You become a friend of your mind by becoming honest and actually looking at what your intelligence is to you if no one was around and if it was just you, and then trust. Without trust, you can't even open a door compared to even the veils beyond the eyes. You gotta have trust in your being. And the only way you can have that trust is not conceptual. That means I could poetically kind of pilot close to it, but at the end of the day, if your eyes don't, your experiences speak much louder than my voice. So Strawman says, how do I let go and be free? How do I properly summon? So you're asking. I don't understand the second question. The first question I understand, but the second question I don't really know what you mean by that. If you mean how do you evoke an image and a thought, it's your attention. I mean, take your attention to anything, and it's like the same thing as whether that thing appears or your attention goes to it. I mean, it's just attention games. You know, don't try to. It's like mysticism is for, believe it or not, the mind that didn't fear itself. When you fear yourself, you feel you need to evoke power. When you don't know what to do, you feel you need something. And that feeling of wanting something, if you take that attitude into your inner realms and the unknown, it's rude. It's rude to the nature's intelligence. You know. Okay, so I'll try to share some insight in your question, Strawman, in the chat section where you say, "How does one be free?" There is, to be honest, one instant way where any human being anywhere in the world, wherever they are, whatever situation they're in, it's a sort of insta freedom. Let me tell you what it is. It's the mystical algorithm. The mystical algorithm is who am I? Whenever you wonder about who is asking the question, the answer can no longer be fixed. The mystery is at the question level, not the answer level. That means like the question, it's like we have a question on the question. What does that mean? That means we still don't know what the right question is to even fathom the right answer. Look at the idea of freedom and ask yourself where that idea really is. When you look at the idea of freedom in front of your eyes, it's just atoms, is it not? In front of your eyes, it's just particles moving in space. But the concept of freedom is for an individual. So your freedom, if you want to free your mind, what you really are saying is uh, you want to be you. That's what you're saying, you know. So how you free your mind is by anywhere, any place, any situation, whatever, after whatever, you know. Ask yourself, who am I in this moment? And there is nothing more powerful than that question, because that question's true answer is not a concept, and only if your intuition has been graceful, you know, in your inner realms might initiate you towards that idea, you know. When I say initiate, I don't mean it in a weird way. I mean it in the sense that you open up to the view because now you understand how it works. So I would say that before wanting to free the mind, wonder what the mind is. When you wonder what the mind is, you come to the self. When you wonder what the self has come from the world. When you wonder what the world is limited to the self. So that's when we reach the Zen koan paradox mystery of life. That how could matter and emptiness exist at the same time? And what would that imply of the nature of the world? That means, imagine in the future, imagine in the future, humanity is invited to some galactic event and they give us this form and they're like, please fill out and write the surface, what the surface of your planet is. Is it made of water or land? You know? And then we see it's made of both, but imagine they don't have an option. And we had to choose whether the earth is made of water or the earth, if the surface of the earth is just water, or if the surface of the earth is land, as if there was no other option, there was no both option. And it's the same kind of situation when we reverse engineer to the chicken and the egg dynamic of kinda, was there consciousness first then matter, or was there matter then and first consciousness? This is the whole difference between the kind of spiritual, the materialist and the immaterialist. The immaterialist feels before matter there was something else, there was space. That means the eyes were open as space, then those eyes within themselves opened the eyes of matter. So, strawman, right off the bat, I could tell you something. If you become too occupied by who you want to be in the world, you will miss out on who the world was before you looked at it. You need to, let me tell you, it's like, at first you have to say it's like a playground, this life, but in reality it is a battlefield. And when it's a battlefield, that means underneath the playfulness, underneath the humor and the jokes and whatever sort of blind spot we have, there is a serious resolution required by human beings towards their reality. You know, I found it very kind of hilarious that back in the day, the concept of magic, I mean, it's an archaic concept. Now it exists in fantasy movies and board games or whatever. But the idea is that magic was how human beings were realizing the power and how advanced of a technology language was. And so when you look at it, children all over the world are taught spelling, you know? And so you even look at the concept of back in the day, there was, I don't know, witches and they would do spells or whatever. But it's like, well, at the time, The thing was that language, if when a human being is not aware of language, it becomes their reality. Ludwig Wittgenstein, this philosopher, says the limits of my language are the limits of my world. Hafiz, uh, yeah, Ludwig Wittgenstein was a German philosopher. Hafiz, the Sufi philosopher, says the words you speak become the house you live in. And then we have poets of the like of Rumi, where Rumi goes next level. Rumi says silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. That means in the silence you see the true face of reality. But right now I'm speaking in the trenches. That means in the front lines. That means those people silent in the mountains, they get access to a sort of relationship with the moment. I would say a relationship that surpasses anything you can find in the marketplace. The more society there is, the more free will is required to maintain that society. If you notice, you can plant a tree and then you could travel and years later come back and see, wow, look at this tree. Like you could plant the seed of an apple tree and come in years later and hold an apple in your hand. But when you look at civilization, civilization is built on nature. That means it's not connected to nature. That means our houses are not like inside trees. Our houses are separate from nature, so they require free will to update. So if you want to free your mind, you require the expression of your free will. You just need to realize that you are temporary. You're like a candle, and that's freedom, really. That's the kind of freedom you find as a human being. Your body is like the wax of the candle, and your consciousness and your mind, or your soul, aka soul unknown, that is like the flame. That is the candle flame in this dark room of the cosmos. And so your freedom, that mind you want to free, that mind, if it had a voice, it would tell you, buddy, you don't need to free. You don't need to free me. The mind would tell you, you don't need to free me. You need to realize what you were before you were. Let me tell you, there's no such thing as a mind. You're a moment. You're a presence of a moment. It's like, even though I speak about, for example, like you can speak about the heart, you can speak about the lungs, you can speak about the brain, but it's all one body, right? And you will comprehend this beyond your eyes too. So I'm telling you, what I dislike. Let me tell you this hilarious story. Let me tell you this hilarious story. It's a story from this from the east, and the story is, I think the guy's. Let me see, what's the guy's name? It's the story is from a man named Mullah Nasruddin. Mullah Nasruddin. So Mullah Nasruddin is is like at a marketplace. This guy, this, like, I don't know, this sage. Imagine a strange sage. This sage is in a marketplace, and he goes and he sees there's a giant line, and he wants to get rid of the line, so he's like, I got a plan. And then he goes to the other side of the line where the front is, where everybody is, and he starts shouting. Mullah Nasruddin. So imagine there's a giant line up, right? He doesn't want the line there, so he goes to the side and he starts shouting. He's like, everybody, everybody on the other side of the market, they're selling the same thing half price. And everybody starts running, and Mullah Nasruddin's friend is there with him too, you know? And suddenly, Mullah Nasruddin's friend sees Mullah Nasruddin, who said the thing in the first place. He himself is running towards the end of the market, right? And then, and then his friend is like, Mullah Nasruddin, why are you running? You know, you made that up to kind of inspire. Then Mullah Nasruddin says, I don't know. Maybe there is actually a sale. And Mullah Nasruddin runs. And that's kind of like the story, okay? So Mullah Nasruddin in that situation, he projected a reality and he didn't have the discretion to notice that he had projected it, so he went with it. So to some degree, you could be to blame for everything in your life, you know? The person's like, imagine the person's blaming the universe, like, universe, why? Why is it like this? And then the universe is also blaming, he's like, man, human being, why are you like this? You know, we got to keep the human body in motion for it to be healthy. And I feel we have to keep the mind of civilization in motion for it to be healthy. And the greatest way it can be healthy, like literally studying the self, is the only thing that every human being should have done, but no teacher in the school system probably said that to the kid. Do you know? That means children have so many abilities, but because we don't acknowledge their abilities, and they don't know how to acknowledge it, they forget it. Right now, there was this strange statistic that I was like, I sympathize with. I don't know, it was like the statistic that 1 in 3 uh, people in Japan is dying from loneliness, literally. And I was like, whoa, how can you be lonely in a world so interconnected? And I realized, you know how the issue with this life is? You're like an antenna. You get signals throughout the day, and if you don't honestly abide by them, you will feel deep down you missed out on something that should have happened. Not that you missed out. I mean, on some level, you can walk on this earth as if no thought can touch you. But at the same time, it's a technology that's in use. That means I use my car to, for example, get to work. But when I speak, I use language to be a person and to be a character, to be in a story. So language is a vehicle, you know, at most. And I'm saying we can navigate beyond this vehicle. You know what's happening? People feel that they have to fill up this void in this life. People feel there's something missing from their vision. Let me tell you, if you had two options and one of them was better, which one would you choose? And many people would instantly would say, I choose the better one. And why do we choose the better? Why? How can we tell something is better? As a result of its efficiency. So I'm telling you, after you have finished being a student of this life, it's time to become the teacher of who you can be. Because it's a free for all, guys. It's hilarious. We're 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. When we forget that, we become cruel, we become selfish, and we lose the meaning of the world. And that's the greatest question. What do 8 billion human beings on a rock in the middle of nowhere do? Seldom is it said, but advancement is an honor too. I was thinking about what is it that people really want. And you know what it is? They want the unknown to move them. Most people, I feel, they want to release something into the world. And I don't know what it is. When I look at it, I never thought I'd be giving these talks. But I could totally see that it's like we are designed for activity. And we, after 4 billion years, now we have control over this activity. We can be conscious of it. Like, how cool is that? Back in the day, it was nature was moving you. Now we are moving nature. And the issue is we're moving nature with the consideration that we have forgotten nature. Napoleon has this quote. He says, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. That means the fool has accepted the impossibility. This is not, you know what it is? Lao Tzu has this quote. He says, you got to let go of who you are now to be who you are meant to. And we got to let go of how we have accepted civilization to be whatever it is to see what civilization is meant to be. So it's like that's really the meaning. I mean, it's like, tell me, what is more exciting to watch? One bird fly in the sky, or watch 8 billion birds fly in the sky? I'm gonna tell you a sort of mythological story, you know, from Persian literature, and it's from this work by this man named Attar, and Attar of Nishapur, this poet. Sufi poet. And Attar of Nishapur, he's written this work where he calls it the Conference of the Birds. And in Persian mythology, strangely, there's also the idea of the phoenix. And the phoenix, in I mean, of course, there's different, various interpretations on it. Some considered the phoenix, from a Persian mythological context, to have lived through 3 end of the world moments. That means 3 apocalypses, and it was a creature that, because it would die and resurrect, it was like the sign of immortal wisdom. Now, the way Attar animates this idea of the phoenix, which in Farsi, in uh, Persian, you call it Seymour. And there's something about that word which I'll tell you, but I'm going to tell you what Attar says. Attar says, one day, all the birds flew into the sky. And they're like, we want to find this legendary bird. We want to find this ultimate bird, this phoenix. All the birds in the world begin flying. And over time, the birds become hopeless, and they're like, there's no phoenix. What is this? We've been flying for days. They stop flying. And at the end of it, only 30 birds, this is Attar, this is what the imagery he shares in his poetry. He says, after all the birds kind of flew away, there was only 30 birds left. And those 30 birds, from whatever angle in life these birds saw it, these birds, just a second, these birds had this endless endurance. That means they wanted to see the truth with a strange intensity, that these 30 birds, as Attar says, they realized together they are the Seymour. And Attar was a genius because he suggested that the collective is the phoenix. You know? So humanity is the effort of human beings as far as they can go, and they just pass the torch. Literally, like how is it, like, you know like, I don't know, like dodgeball. Before the guy falls on the ground, he throws the ball, you know. So it's like that, you know. You just pass whatever you have kind of. I'm telling you, there's a joy when when you live for your world, not for yourself. There's a strange joy. It's like when you live for your world, because you're also in your world, it's win-win. But if you live for yourself, you might win and the world will probably lose. I'm going to actually read for you. Go into a quote tunnel. A quote tunnel is a segment of these shows, these episodes, guys, where I just dive into literally the quotes of a notable person in history or a theme. So for today, I've decided for it to be Attar of Nishapur. So we want to see how this man's inner realms stepped into the outer realms, or how his eyes saw the world. Attar says, if the eye of the heart is open, in each atom there will be 100 secrets. Attar says, let love lead your soul. Attar of Nishapur says, the home we seek is in eternity. Attar of Nishapur says, to seek death is death's only cure. Attar of Nishapur says, from each a mystic silence love demands. Attar says, a man whose eyes love opens risks his soul. His dancing breaks beyond the mind's control. Attar says, had I known how listening is superior to speaking, I would not have wasted my life preaching. Yeah, that's true. But is it true enough? Attar of Nishapur says, when first you enter wisdom's sea, beware, a wave of indecision floods you there. Attar says, he who would know the secret of both worlds will find the secret of them both is love. That means love is the acknowledgement of the living and the real. That means objects can't love each other. Subjects can't love each other. But life can, you know. Attar says, if you would glimpse the beauty we revere, look in your heart, its image will appear. Attar says, all things are but masks at God's beck and call. They are symbols that instruct us that God is all. Attar says, the sea will be the sea, whatever the drop's philosophy. That's an incredible quote. That means because we are the small and the big, our views on the big doesn't change the big, you know? That's what I'm saying. Not that it doesn't change it. We can say at most it's being it. Or the big is influencing the small. Attar says, your face is neither infinite nor ephemeral. You can never see your own face. Only a reflection, not the face itself. Attar says, let love lead your soul, make it a place to retire to, a kind of monastery cave, a retreat for the deepest core of your being. Attar says, come, you lost atoms, to your center draw, and be the eternal mirror that you saw. Rays that have wandered into darkness wide, return and back into your sun subside. Man, this guy's poetry is next level. I'm gonna share that quote in the chat section. So guys, my attention came to the chat section. Unknown says, two birds, one stone, what do you get? Because you already have the stone, so you can't get the stone. So you can only get the two birds, or one of the birds, or nothing. Uh, Strawman, I recommend you use more discretion in the chat. Attar says, I am alone. Make me your single goal. My presence is sufficient for your soul. I am your God, your one necessity. With every breath you breathe, remember me. Let me tell you guys, there's something you find in mystical hymns all around the world that it feels like an individual is writing it, but at the end of the sentence, you feel it's not an individual saying it. Attar says, wander, you are distraught. Be calm. Our glorious King cannot admit all comers to his court. It is not fit that every rascal who sleeps out the night should be allowed to glimpse its radiant light. Most are turned back, and few perceive the throne. Among 100,000 there is one. Attar says, don't be dead or asleep or awake. Don't be anything. What you most want, what you travel around wishing to find. Lose yourself as lovers lose themselves, and you'll be that. That means trust your world. How else can it happen for you? Attar says, since love has spoken in your soul, reject the self, that whirlpool where our lives are wrecked. As Jesus rode his donkey, ride on it. Your stubborn self must bear you and submit. Then burn this self and purify your soul. Let Jesus' spotless spirit be your goal. You know what it is? I am getting a huge sense that Dr. Seuss probably read this guy's poetry. 100%. I feel Dr. Seuss was inspired by Attar of Nishapur, but I could be wrong. That's just his thought. Anyways, Attar says, yet what are seas and what is air? For all is God, and but a talisman. Sorry, I'll read that again. No, sorry. Yet what are seas and what is air? For all is God, and but a talisman are heaven and earth to veil divinity. For heaven and earth, did he not permeate them, were but names. Know then that both this visible world and that which is unseen is alike our God himself. Not is save God, and all that is God. So this dude is pretty much saying we're all the thoughts of an unfathomable entity beyond our perception. Not even an entity, just a being. That means it's like we're the cells in the body of God. Imagine the red blood cells in your vein, in your body. They started making their own civilization, their own languages. How much could they comprehend why you go to work? You see, there are certain veils that it's as if eyes are not unauthorized to see, other eyes. There is a moment that will come where the aggression is literally like a weapon used on a battlefield put down, and then actual observance begins maneuvering in the moment. When that occurs, you you allow the world to move then you, and so your mind is in rhythm with the world. The home, Attar says, the home we seek is in eternity. The truth we seek is like a shoreless sea, of which your paradise is but a drop. This ocean can be yours. Why should you stop, beguiled by dreams of evanescent dew? The secrets of the sun are yours, but you content yourself with motes trapped in its beams. Turn to what truly lives, reject what seems. Which matters more, the body or the soul? Be whole, it's spelled with a W. Be whole, desire and journey to the whole, spelled with a capital W. And that is the task of man, that we are not just the sands in the hourglass. We are the hourglass. Attar says, from each love demands a mystic silence. What do all seek so earnestly? 'Tis love. Love is the subject of their innermost thoughts. In love no longer thou in quotations and I in quotations exist. For self has passed away in the beloved. Now will I draw aside the veil from love, and in the temple of mine inmost soul, behold the friend incomparable love. He who would know the secret of both worlds will find that secret of them both is love. So you see, the mystic is perceiving love as a non-dual experience. Attar says the sun can only be seen by the light of the sun. The more a man or woman knows, the greater the bewilderment, the closer to the sun, the more dazzled, until a point is reached where one no longer is. A mystic knows without knowledge, without intuition or information, without contemplation or description or revelation. Mystics are not themselves. They do not exist in selves. They move as they are moved, talk as words come, see with sight that enters their eyes. I met a woman once and asked her where love had led her. This is the woman responding. Fool, there's no destination to arrive at. Loved one and lover and love are infinite. Wow. This man is definitely the next level. Guys, just don't engage what bothers you, and just try to just care for the atmosphere of the chat. And this world is filled with multiple performances. So don't let something disturb you, because it's a good kind of test for these talks. From both angles. It's like when you're comfortable with silence and stillness, that is the best response at a time of turmoil. You know, guys, these Attar quotes were like, I feel like I'm in the Andromeda Galaxy right now. Guys, by the way, the roots of all esotericism is from such an unknown experiential state that for man, it's like for two-dimensional beings to try to explain a three-dimensional reality, they require a fourth-dimensional perception, for example. Attar says, in the dead of night, a Sufi began to weep. He said, in quotations, this is the crying Sufi, this world is like a closed coffin in which we are shut, and in which through our ignorance we spend our lives in folly and desolation. When death comes to open the lid of the coffin, each one who has wings will fly off to eternity, but those without will remain locked in the coffin. So, my friends, before the lid of this coffin is taken off, do all you can to become a bird of the way to God. Do all you can to develop your wings and your feathers. Wow. So, ignorance is kind of like you're a coffin, and death is actually coming to open the coffin in this poetic approach. And the person, if they don't realize uh, that they are, if they don't find their notice their wings beyond their ignorance, they remain kind of like, what is this? It's like a mystical pattern. It's this reincarnation thing's everywhere in ancient mysticism. You know? Excuse me. Okay. So guys, that's let me see if there's one more quote. Yeah, there's one more. I'll read this. It's a big one. The last of the quote, you know, last quote for the quote tunnel. Attar says, "In this valley, love is represented by fire, reason by smoke. When love bursts into flame, reason is forthwith dissipated like smoke. Reason cannot coexist with love's mania, for love has nothing whatever to do with human reason. If ever you attain a clear vision of the unseen world, then only will you be able to realize the source of love. By the odor of love, every atom in the world is intoxicated. It owes its existence to the existence of love. If you possess the spiritual insight to penetrate the invisible world, the atoms of the visible world would also become unveiled to you. But if you regard these with the eye of intellect, you will never comprehend love as you should. Only one who has gone through the test and has become free can feel the spiritual devotion. You have not acquired such experience. You have not even the inspiration of love. You are selfish, dead, so to say, and therefore unworthy of love. He who enters upon this path should have thousands of hearts fired with devotion, so that every moment he may be able to sacrifice 100 souls." Okay, that's a bit. I think, let me tell you what I think he's saying here. Because there's no way I can just, like, I feel like I didn't understand what he was saying. But I think and it's not that I can't, like, my understanding is he's saying, listen, if there's more to dimensions to life, and you don't open the hood of the engine of this world, and if you don't realize that there is, in some sense, a presence, there's the presence of a certain attributeless being that is allowing phenomenology to move in his, I'm trying to speak in his context, Attar's context. What if the you beyond the eyes of you was not a you? You know what it is? It's just human nature. I mean, this guy was speaking like 700 years ago, 900 years ago, Attar. He was alive like that time. So 900 years ago, of course, people were selfish and savage. People just wanted to, like, live to the next day. After we have mastered living to the next day, then we can set up our work. You know, I feel every human being should attempt their great work once in this lifetime. Like, what does that mean? That means try to live in the greatest way you can. Why? not because of future results, just to see what it would be like. Don't you want to see how advanced the world can be, how advanced you can be? These all require the attention's awareness, awareness to the attention. So welcome to the chat, everybody. Just let me declare this. So guys, the talk is ended at this point. I'm going to open it up to Q&A. If you have questions, now is a good time to ask. So now I can easily focus on the chat section. All right. So let's see. What is alchemical literature? How it's pretty much how some people were able to write down what the eyes of the mind saw, the eyes of the attributeless experiencer. Lorna says, when Mr. Within, when we die and reincarnate, does mind, body, and spirit come back, or pieces of us, or how does it work in your opinion? I stopped trying to see it as a fixed machine. That's one thing I could tell you. That it's like a river, it's like a breeze, it's like wind. It's in motion. Because it's in motion, I don't have too much of a idea on what may be. But out of my own experience, like that's my general view, my personal view. If you want to know what I feel happens, I feel that just like how a caterpillar has access to two-dimensional, like it has legs for movement on a two-dimensional plane, but the caterpillar goes into a metamorphosis and has access to a three-dimensional plane. So in my vision, I feel that it's like conscious living is the cocoon, and what what that transition would be is now we're experiencing ourselves being a self in a world. Right now, the moment is we are a self and we're in a world. I feel it's just a inclination. I don't know. It's just a feeling. I feel it's going to flip. I feel after we eject from this plane of existence, uh, we're going to pilot the self as the world. So right now you're experiencing the self in the world. I feel beyond the veil we're going to be the world experiencing the self, and the simultaneity of these two. The mystics were like, right now, as you're alive in this very moment, the truth is alive. Someone has shared a quote from James Joyce in the chat section. James Joyce says, think you're escaping and run into yourself. Longest way round is the shortest way home. Shut your eyes and see. Love loves to love, love. James Joyce really loved to love, 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 love. It's like, that's the best thing. It's like someone says, how much do you love me? You look at your girlfriend and you're like, ad infinitum, sweetheart. like Mad Men era, vocal tone. Lorna says, like we can have more dimensions to us, but we can't feel them. I don't know. I'm just saying right now we are experiencing our attention through an individual conscious object. If there is something, most likely it's gonna surpass just the acknowledgement of an individual conscious object. And what is the reverse? It would be a collective unconscious subject. So it's like right now, human life is like we're like icebergs, and then death is. I mean, of course, we should speak about it more discreetly. The door of transition is like um, more respectfully, but the door of transition is. Uh, it's just an oscillation between the known and the unknown. So if you trust the unknown, I keep telling people, you know, become content with the zero dimension. Just get a sense of like the unknown and be okay with it. Because when you're okay with the unknown, then you can know anything. It doesn't mean you know exactly, but you can. The potential for wanting for knowing through your own eyes activates when you find your own unknown. And my effort with these talks is just try to somehow. The best thing these talks can be is a mirror uh, to the realization that because nobody has your eyes, nobody can reach the source of your sight other than you. You are the pilot of your vision. If you are conscious and you study if you get acquainted to the nature of conscious living as if it's not atoms moving, it's a unknown process yet being simultaneously known, then it's comfort. Then it's like you don't. Even if we transition, we don't transition with a story of tragedy. We get to actually see what is going on. It's like because a lot of experience in life is like a roller coaster. Life is as what do I say? Like a roller coaster ride. That means life goes forth, and you go forth as much as you can, and then you raise your glass to the cosmos and you're like, cheers, you know. We got to see the show, and then your eyes close, and I don't know, immortal seeds may sprout. I don't know. Lorna, what I'm telling you that the correct answer is nobody knows, and I'm telling you I don't know. I'm just saying it's my how far I've looked into the idea has kind of made me kind of perceive it in that sense. So, guys, if there's more questions, keep them coming. So the answer is no, Lorna. That's my answer. But the whole point of life is that you run looking for something outside of you to help make sense of something that is actually happening within you. So I'm telling you, it's honestly a sort of silent and still observance, and it's present. It's like whether you do something or not, it's there. So it's like the mystical riddle would be the mystical riddle would be what is it that's there, uh, if you're there or if you're not there, and that's it. It's your presence. You trust your presence. You don't live purely as an ideological creature. You have access to a different sort of decision making. You see, Lorna, it's first of all, it's a rock in the middle of nowhere. We spark language. I feel that the only thing we're supposed to do is just experience and continue the human species. It's like a general tactical move. And then at the same time, because we are in like an empty room technically, we are creating the value of our moments. So you have to become responsible. You have to realize the mind is the painter. What does that mean? That means your attention projects value. And it's not about being it too deep. Lorna, I would recommend you actually study the simple. Usually people can only do two things when they, you know, that means the answer can be in two ways. Either the answer is simple or the answer is complex. And I'm saying in reality, if you find yourself in a moment that's complex, that means you need a couple more simpler. You need to notice uh, certain simpler dimensions before the complexity falls in. So for me, it's not complexity. Like it might shock you, but after I give this talk, I don't have a relationship. Like I'm not just going around through the whole day with just these ideas everywhere. It's like I've kind of learned. I'm kind of I don't know. I'm grateful that I became aware of mindfulness early on. Because mindfulness means when you do an action, whatever it is, imagine it's typing, giving a talk, writing, drinking orange juice, whatever it is, this action in that moment there is no you. There is just the action, you know? There's just that moment, and after you're done with that moment, then you are into the next one. Then there's no other. It's like that's kind of like the Zen algorithm, where it was like by acknowledging emptiness and space everywhere, you don't just randomly move it in the moment. You know, it's like there's a sort of familiarity with how the inner realms can practically be expressed, I guess. So I would say you got to trust your mind, and it's like it's an instrument that you got to, like, you know, just like any instrument, you got to get acquainted with it, you know. And the best way to study your mind is not trying to go do, I don't know, you know, uh, play mask games with the unknown. That esotericism has is it's being rude to the unknown. So, guys, Lorna says a question, interesting question. And what's happening today in the world? How do we respond to the injustice? Not the looting stuff, but the protests and such. I mean, what's right to do with life, with life stuff? Do we just be? No, 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 no. If you want to just be, um, it's as if we're not trees. So you gotta have movement. It's like it's common sense that in this life you require to move. You know, we can't all just sit on the earth and just wait till the end of time. So it's not just about being aware of being, and that's what I noticed. That the new age is actually nullifying the egos that people need to actually get their life lessons from. You know, it's like I think this is the healthiest way to look at life. It's an artwork. And as artwork, it has multiple interpretations. And so you are left from your corner of the universe, where your eyes and inner realms open. I would say something that, I don't know, usually helped me was that I would have moments in life where I would feel like I'm looking at the whole picture. And then I would ask a question that I felt was of macrocosmic significance. Then all the suffering in the microcosmic questions, they didn't they didn't bother me. It's like you don't suffer from the small when you attempt the big. I don't know why. I think it's just the way nature. It's just like nature's style. It took us 4 billion years to be able to be conscious and give a direction to life. It's very obvious you need to direct your life. You need to pilot it, I often say. You need to be a pilot of your consciousness. You no longer just need to be a dwelling creature, just the environment kinda giving you directions, you know. You one day you're gonna see that this world was here for the you that you could have been. For me, it begins from strategy, and strategy begins, if you even in movies you see it, that the general has a tent. And what does that mean? That means in whatever kind of outlook you have on life, you need to have some sort of headquarters. Okay? And that headquarters is my internal, those macrocosmic questions that I've attempted to answer. I had this teacher, this math teacher. He told the class the story. He said that when he was young, when he was in Iran, there's this like, anyways, he had to pass this really complex um, physics examination, you know, for his, I don't know, post grad or whatever. And so what he was doing was, he said for this physics exam he just spent the whole night, he wasn't ready, and he just spent the whole night answering the hardest problem on on the exam of like the past years or whatever, the hardest physics mathematical problem on the exam. So he spent the whole night just trying to attempt the hardest problem on the exam. I remember him saying that when he got the results of the exam, he got like, he didn't get like the highest score, but he got like, in Iran it's not out of 100, it's out of 20, so he got like above 19. But when he attempted to solve the hardest problem, all the easier questions of the exam he could solve. And that's kind of life, the kind of macrocosmic questions you got to tackle beyond your eyes. And you got to realize it's like there's no backup system. It's weird. What is that backup system? That means it's inevitably the candle flame is going to melt the wax. So every day you live, your mind gives off light, and your body kind of like, energy of your body lessens. I would say, Lorna, just, you know, just today or whenever, just make a cup of hot tea or coffee, and just go and find a nice moment and just sit in that moment, and whatever is in your sight, watch it. You don't know. I've been to cinemas and theaters, and I've also been in nature and just watched nature, like what's going on here. You know, if you zoom in on nature, you're seeing like the craziest action movies. You know, we are living in a fractal reality, as Plato says, as above, so below. Somebody came up to Plato, said, "What time is it?" He said, "Time is the movie of eternity." Oh man. So Lorna, that's the best. That's all I can say, really. I mean, you got to realize there's nobody who has your eyes, so nobody can see your problem to even help you, unless you realize that really it's like all problems are to some degree like a chair you're sitting on, and you want the savior. What do you call it? Like a lot of religious people, they're expecting a savior. They want the outer world to come and give them a resolution to their inner realm. That means if we just entertain this incredible notion that the subconscious is the reverse of whatever is in the conscious, so the materialist subconsciously is astonished by the spiritual, and the religious person in their subconscious, they're fascinated by the non-spiritual, because it all is based on the first axis. Guys, how hilarious is this? All I'm telling you, language is hollow. Language is hollow AF. So I'm just saying that you're the pilot. You observe the information that's accessible to you, your eyes, your senses, everything, and then realize it's like an empty. Believe it or not, I'm not joking. Literally, if you think about it, there is so many things human beings haven't done that if every person on the planet just decided to do something else, it would be this instant wave of innovation. You know, like I'm just telling you, it's like the presence of the attention is how we're being. The movement of whatever phenomena in that presence of attention arises as the personality. So that's how I see it so far, anyways. But great questions, Lorna. Thanks for sharing. All right, guys. I feel that it is true that there are many angles that life could have moved through. There's many angles it will move through. And so, what greater strength can there be than to witness a changing world and yet to continue? Even if there is a physical transition, that continuity after is an ultimate victory. There's a gentleness to this life. It's like that's the algorithm. It's Sadhguru once said it well. He said it's life sensitivity. You see, guys, even birds. talk. Even birds give talks in the morning. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope this episode was helpful. And as Rumi says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a place. I will meet you there, he says. Then he says, when the soul sits on that grass, the world is too full to talk about. And when Meister Eckhart has another way where he says, the same eyes that I see God are the same eyes that God sees me. Meister Eckhart is a Christian mystic, Christian Gnostic. I'm telling you, any dimension of your life, any dimension of any system that doesn't update descends into, is perturbed towards perversion. What does that mean? That means if you can't advance, you break what you are already. Because you want to feel that mood change, you know? Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and awesome.